The massive council chamber on Nexus Prime buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from 12 different species gathered for an emergency meeting. Ambassador Zefkar of the Vortanian Empire stood at the center podium, his forearms trembling slightly as he held a data tablet containing the most disturbing intelligence report in galactic history. "Fellow council members," Zefkar began, his voice carrying across the vast chamber through universal translators. "3 days ago, our deep space scouts detected something impossible. There are signs of advanced civilization on Sol 3, a planet we classified as uninhabitable over 2 centuries ago." A collective gasp echoed through the chamber. Sol 3 was listed in every galactic database as a Class X death world. The planet's gravity was nearly twice the galactic standard. Its atmosphere contained poison gases that would kill most known species in minutes. The surface was bombarded with deadly radiation from its unstable star. Violent storms regularly devastated entire continents. The oceans were filled with acid that could dissolve most spacecraft hulls. "Surely there must be some mistake," squeaked High Counselor Vexani of the Delicate People's Union. Her translucent body shimmered with fear. "Nothing could survive on that nightmare world. Our scientists proved it was impossible." Meanwhile, in the cold darkness of space near the edge of what humans called their solar system, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the exploration vessel Liberty. The ship was humanity's first attempt at faster-than-light travel, built from materials that had survived Earth's harsh conditions for decades. Jake was a former test pilot who had volunteered for humanity's first contact mission, though he never expected to actually meet anyone out here. "Captain, we're detecting unknown vessels approaching," reported Lieutenant Susan Parker from her sensor station. "They're not using any propulsion system we recognize." Jake nodded calmly. "Open a communication channel. Let's see if they want." To talk, the alien ships were beautiful, Jake had to admit. They gleamed like silver jewels against the star field, their surfaces perfectly smooth and unblemished. They moved with an elegant grace that made human ships look clumsy in comparison. But Jake noticed something odd about their formation. They kept their distance, as if they were afraid to get too close. "Unknown vessels, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earthship Liberty," Jake transmitted. "We come in peace and would like to establish communication." The response came quickly, though the voice that answered sounded strained and fearful. "Earthship, this is Commander Veltara of the Kepler Republic Patrol Fleet. We must warn you, your vessel appears to be broadcasting from the Sol system. That area contains a Class X death world. Your crew is in extreme danger." Jake blinked. "In surprise? Death world? You mean Earth?" "That's our home planet, Commander. We come from Sol 3. The silence that followed lasted nearly a full minute. When Commander Veltara finally responded, her voice was barely a whisper. "Did you say your home planet? You live on Sol 3? "Born and raised there," Jake replied cheerfully. "Beautiful place. Blue skies, green forests, nice beaches. You should visit sometime." On the Kepler ship, Commander Veltara's hands shook as she turned to her crew. Her species had evolved on a world with gentle gravity, stable weather, and an atmosphere so pure that even minor pollution could be deadly. The crew around her were all showing signs of extreme stress. Their breathing was rapid and shallow, their skin had changed color, and several were making soft whimpering sounds. "Medical team to the bridge immediately," Veltara ordered. "We have a first contact situation with a species that claims to live on a Class X death world." Back on the Liberty, Jake was joined by Dr. Lisa Martinez, Earth's leading expert on alien life. Lisa had spent years preparing for this moment, studying every piece of data humanity had gathered about the galaxy beyond their solar system. She was excited to finally meet other intelligent species. "Commander Veltara," Lisa said warmly, "I'm Dr. Lisa Martinez. I specialize in biology and would love to learn about your species and your home world." "Dr. Martinez," Veltara replied, her voice still shaking. "Before we proceed, I must ask about your planet's conditions. Our record shows Sol 3 has gravity nearly twice the galactic standard. How do you survive such crushing force?" Lisa laughed, a sound that made the entire alien crew flinch. Gravity? Oh, we're used to it. We actually need it to stay healthy. Our bones and muscles developed in Earth's gravity. When our astronauts spend time in low gravity, they have to exercise constantly to avoid getting weak. You exercise to avoid becoming weak? Veltara asked in horror. The gravity alone should crush your internal organs. Not at all, Lisa replied. In fact, many humans enjoy activities that create even more gravitational force. We have amusement parks with rides that spin people around at high speeds. Children love them. Some of our athletes can handle forces up to 8 times normal gravity. The medical team on the Kepler ship was now treating half the crew for shock. 3 crew members had fainted when they heard about the amusement park rides. Dr. Martinez, Veltara continued weakly, our data shows your planet's atmosphere contains diatomic oxygen in concentrations that should ignite your lungs. How do you breathe poison gas? Lisa looked confused. Poison gas? You mean oxygen? We need oxygen to live. We'll die without it in just a few minutes. Our blood carries oxygen to every cell in our bodies. You inject corrosive gas directly into your bloodstream? Veltara's voice rose to a frightened squeak. Well, not inject exactly, Lisa said, still confused by the alien's reaction. We breathe it in through our lungs. It's about 21% of our atmosphere. We actually produce oxygen by growing plants. Trees, flowers, grass, they make oxygen for us. You cultivate organisms that produce toxic gas? Veltara was now breathing so rapidly that her crew was worried she might hyperventilate. Jake decided to try a different approach. Commander, maybe we should talk about something else. What's your homeworld like? Paradise 7 orbits a stable star at the perfect distance for comfortable temperatures. Veltara replied, grateful for the change of topic. Our weather is controlled by orbital platforms to prevent dangerous storms. The gravity is 40% of galactic standard, gentle enough for safe movement. Our atmosphere is pure and clean with no harmful gases. That sounds very peaceful, Lisa said. Earth is different. We have weather systems that can be quite dramatic. Thunderstorms, hurricanes, tornadoes, blizzards. Some people actually enjoy watching them. Your people observe deadly weather phenomena. For entertainment? Veltara asked. Some do, Jake admitted. We have storm chasers who follow tornadoes around in vehicles, and surfers who ride ocean waves during storms. Lots of people like the excitement. You enter the acidic oceans during violent weather? The question came from another crew member who had been listening in growing horror. Acidic? Lisa asked. Ocean water isn't acidic. It's salty, but people swim in it all the time. Millions of people visit beaches every year. Children build sandcastles and play in the waves. You allow your young to play in corrosive liquids? Veltara's voice was now just a whisper. It's just salt water, Lisa explained. The salt content is only about 3.5%. We actually need salt to survive. Our bodies require sodium to function properly. The conversation continued for another hour, with each revelation about Earth causing more distress among the alien crew. They learned that humans lived on a planet where the surface temperature could vary by over 100 degrees, where tectonic plates moved and created earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, where the atmosphere was constantly in motion, creating waves that could reach hundreds of kilometers per hour. They discovered that humans shared their world with creatures that would give galactic citizens nightmares. Predators with razor-sharp teeth and claws, venomous snakes and spiders, microscopic organisms that could cause deadly diseases. And humans not only survived alongside these creatures, but some people kept them as pets or studied them for fun. The end of the conversation, the entire Kepler crew was in medical care. Commander Veltara managed one final transmission before being sedated by her medical team. Captain Morrison, Dr. Martinez, I must contact the Galactic Council immediately. Your species represents something unprecedented in galactic history. You have achieved civilization on a world that should not support life. This information will shock the entire galaxy. Jake and Lisa looked at each other with concern. They had hoped first contact would be the beginning of peaceful relations with galactic civilization. Instead, they seemed to have terrified their new neighbors just by existing. Well, Jake said with a sigh, I guess we're going to make quite an impression. 3 weeks after the terrifying first contact with the humans, the Galactic Council emergency session was the most attended meeting in recorded history. Representatives from 47 different species had traveled to Nexus Prime, many arriving in medical ships due to the psychological stress of learning about Earth's existence. High Chancellor Morden of the Celestial Federation stood at the main podium, his crystalline body pulsing with nervous energy. The Federation was known for being the most cautious and safety-focused government in the galaxy. Their worlds were so carefully controlled that even minor weather variations were considered dangerous emergencies. Fellow beings, Morden announced, his voice echoing through the chamber, we face an unprecedented crisis. A species has somehow evolved on a world that violates every known law of habitability. The humans represent a biological impossibility that threatens our understanding of life itself. Admiral Crixton of the Hegemony military force raised one of his 6 arms. The Hegemony was the galaxy's primary military power, but even their warriors looked shaken by the reports from Sol System. High Chancellor, my analysts have reviewed the data 17 times. We believe the humans might be weapons created by an extinct precursor race. No natural evolution could produce beings capable of surviving on that nightmare world. Weapons? Squeaked Representative Pixara of the Gentle Worlds Alliance. Her species was so fragile that they required protective suits just to attend council meetings. Are you suggesting they were designed to be unstoppable? Consider the evidence, Crixton continued, his voice grim. They breathe corrosive gas. They consume salt water. They exercise in gravitational fields that would crush most of us. They view deadly weather as entertainment. If someone wanted to create the perfect survival machine, humans would be the result. Meanwhile, on Earth, President Helen Rodriguez was addressing the United Nations General Assembly in New York. The revelation that humanity was not alone in the universe had been shocking. But the news that alien civilizations considered Earth uninhabitable was causing considerable confusion among world leaders. Ladies and gentlemen, President Rodriguez said from the podium, we have learned that our new galactic neighbors view our home as what they call a death world. While this may seem concerning, I want to assure everyone that this is simply a matter of different perspectives. What we consider normal, they find frightening. In the audience, Ambassador Paul Jackson listened carefully. Paul was a former Marine who had served in some of Earth's most challenging environments. The President had chosen him to lead the new Terran diplomatic corps because of his experience dealing with difficult situations. Paul had survived combat in deserts, jungles, and mountains that would be considered impossible terrain by galactic standards. Ambassador Jackson will be establishing formal diplomatic relations with the Galactic Council, President Rodriguez continued. We hope to show our new neighbors that humans are peaceful and friendly, despite their concerns about our survival capabilities. Paul nodded grimly. Based on the initial reports from Captain Morrison and Dr. Martinez, this would be the most challenging diplomatic mission in human history. The aliens were not just cautious about humans. They were genuinely terrified back on Nexus Prime. The debate was becoming more intense. Dr. Zalthara of the Science Collective had just finished presenting her analysis of human biology, and the results were causing panic throughout the chamber. Based on the data provided by Commander Valtara, Dr. Zalthara reported, humans possess physical capabilities that should be impossible. Their bone density is 3 times the galactic average. Their muscle fibers can generate forces that would tear apart most known organic materials. Their blood carries a corrosive gas that they somehow use for energy production. But surely their technology compensates for their hostile environment? Asked Counselor Vexani hopefully. No, Dr. Zalthara replied, causing several representatives to gasp. According to our scans, human technology is primitive compared to galactic standards. They survive on their death world using only their natural biological abilities. They have no environmental control systems, no gravity manipulation, no atmospheric purification beyond simple filtering. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. The idea that any species could survive on a Class X world without advanced technology was beyond their comprehension. On Earth, Colonel Rita Barnes was giving a routine briefing to a group of alien observers who had finally agreed to establish long-range communication. Rita was a military historian who specialized in human conflict, and she had been asked to provide some background on human civilization. Human history includes numerous major conflicts, Rita explained to the alien delegation, reading from her standard presentation materials. World War II, for example, resulted in approximately 70 million casualties over 6 years. The alien observers' translators immediately began broadcasting distress signals. 70 million deaths represented more than the total population of most galactic civilizations. The idea that humans had survived a conflict of such magnitude was incomprehensible. "Colonel Barnes," came a shaky voice from the Kepler representative, "did you say 70 million of your people died in a single conflict?" "Yes, though that was one of our larger wars," Rita replied matter-of-factly. "We've had many smaller conflicts throughout history. The Black Death killed about a third of Europe's population in the 14th century. The Napoleonic Wars lasted over a decade. We've had 2 world wars, numerous regional conflicts, and various natural disasters." Natural disasters? The question came from a Vortanian observer whose translator was having difficulty processing the concept. "Oh yes," Rita said, pulling up another presentation. "Earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, droughts, ice ages. Earth goes through regular cycles of major climate changes. We adapt and survive." The alien observers were now requesting emergency medical support. 3 of them had suffered complete nervous breakdowns upon learning that humans had survived multiple extinction-level events. Dr. Kevin Thompson, a marine biologist, was giving his own presentation about Earth's oceanic life to a different group of alien researchers. Kevin had been asked to provide some basic information about Earth's biodiversity, focusing on marine ecosystems. "Earth's oceans contain an incredible variety of life," Kevin explained enthusiastically. "We have great white sharks that can grow up to 20 feet long with teeth designed for tearing apart large prey. Giant squids with tentacles longer than most spacecraft. Blue whales that are larger than many galactic transport vessels. And humans enter these waters voluntarily?" asked a trembling voice from the audience. "Absolutely," Kevin replied with a smile. "Swimming, surfing, diving, sailing. Many humans spend their entire lives on or near the ocean. We have underwater cities, research stations, and recreational facilities. Some people live on boats and travel the oceans for pleasure. You build permanent settlements in the corrosive liquid inhabited by massive predators?" The question came from a delicate people's representative who sounded on the verge of fainting. "The ocean isn't corrosive," Kevin explained. "It's just salt water, and most ocean life is harmless to humans. We've learned to coexist with marine predators. Shark attacks are extremely rare. People are much more likely to be injured in vehicle accidents than by ocean life. You operate vehicles in addition to surviving your environment?" Another voice asked in horror. Kevin was confused by the question. "Of course. Cars, trucks, motorcycles, aircraft, boats. Transportation is essential for human civilization." The alien researchers were now in full panic mode. The idea that humans operated high-speed vehicles on a death world while also entering corrosive waters filled with giant predators was beyond their ability to process. Back in the Galactic Council chamber, the debate had reached a critical point. High Chancellor Morden was presenting his final recommendation to the assembled representatives. "Based on all available evidence," Morden announced, "I propose that we establish a quarantine zone around the Sol system. The humans represent a threat not through malice, but through their very existence. They challenge everything we know about the nature of life and survival." "Seconded," called out Admiral Crixton. "My military analysis indicates that any species capable of surviving on a Class X Death World without advanced technology poses an unknown danger to galactic civilization. But surely we can find some way to help them, protested Counselor Vexani. Perhaps we can relocate them to a safer world. Relocate them? Dr. Zalthara looked horrified. They've adapted to survive in conditions that would kill us instantly. Moving them to a normal world might be just as dangerous for them as their current environment is for us. The debate continued for hours, with representatives arguing about quarantine zones, safety protocols, and the philosophical implications of humanity's existence. Some species were calling for immediate evacuation of their border worlds. Others were demanding that their home systems be moved farther away from Sol. Finally, High Chancellor Morden called for a vote, all in favor of establishing a minimum safe distance perimeter around the Sol system while we study this situation further. The vote was unanimous. 47 species agreed that humanity needed to be kept at a safe distance. 6 months after the Galactic Council had established the quarantine zone around Sol system, War Prime Zargoth of the Dominion faction was growing impatient. The Dominion believed that the galaxy had been fooled by human lies and propaganda. No species could truly survive on a Class X death world, and Zargoth was determined to prove it. "The humans are deceiving us," Zargoth announced to his war council aboard the massive battlecruiser Dominator. "They have somehow created elaborate illusions to make us believe they live on that impossible world. We will expose their deception and show the galaxy that the Dominion is not afraid of human tricks." The Dominion fleet consisted of 50 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy. Each vessel was equipped with weapons that could destroy entire cities and shields that could withstand the energy output of a small star. The fleet had never been defeated in battle, and Zargoth was confident that it would make quick work of any human defenses on Earth. Admiral Betty Carson was reviewing the latest intelligence reports in her office at the newly constructed Terran Defense Command. Betty had been chosen to lead humanity's first military space force because of her experience commanding naval operations in the Pacific Ocean. The idea that her experience with Earth's oceans would be useful in space combat had seemed strange at first, but now it was beginning to make sense. "Admiral," reported Captain Tony Davis, her intelligence officer, "our deep space sensors are detecting a large alien fleet approaching the outer system. They're broadcasting on standard diplomatic channels, but their formation suggests hostile intent." Betty nodded calmly. "How many ships?" 50 confirmed, ma'am. "They're much larger than anything we've encountered before. Our analysis suggests they're military vessels of some kind." "Understood. Signal the fleet to assume defensive positions and get me a direct line to the approaching vessels." The hastily assembled Terran Defense Fleet consisted of only 12 ships, built from the same materials and technology that had allowed humanity to survive on Earth. The vessels were not as elegant as alien ships, but they were designed to operate in the harsh conditions of space. Just as humans had learned to survive in Earth's challenging environment, Admiral Carson stood on the bridge of the flagship Defiance, watching as the massive alien fleet approached. The enemy ships were beautiful and intimidating, but Betty had faced worse odds during her naval career. She had commanded ships through hurricanes, typhoons, and storms that would have terrified most galactic species. "This is Admiral Betty Carson of the Terran Defense Fleet," she transmitted to the approaching ships. "State your intentions." The response came immediately, delivered in a voice full of arrogance and authority. "Human vessel, this is War Prime Zargoth of the Dominion Fleet. We have come to expose your deception and demonstrate that your species cannot possibly survive on the death world you claim as home. You will surrender immediately and allow us to relocate you to a suitable world." Betty looked at her crew with amusement. The bridge officers were all veterans of Earth's military forces, people who had survived training in deserts, jungles, mountains, and oceans that aliens considered uninhabitable. The idea that they needed to be rescued from their own planet was almost funny. "War Prime Zargoth," Betty replied. "We appreciate your concern for our safety, but we're quite comfortable here. Earth is our home, and we have no intention of leaving it. However, If you'd like to see for yourself how we live, you're welcome to visit Earth's surface." The silence that followed lasted for several minutes. When Zargoth finally responded, his voice sounded less confident than before. "You are inviting us to land on your death world?" "It's not a death world to us," Betty explained patiently. "It's just home. We have cities, parks, beaches, mountains. People live normal lives here. You might find it interesting." On the Dominion flagship, War Prime Zargoth was staring at his tactical display in confusion. The human fleet was outnumbered, more than 4-1, facing the most powerful military force in the galaxy, and their admiral was casually inviting his forces to visit their planet's surface. "War Prime," his tactical officer whispered, "what if they're not lying? What if they really do live on that world?" "Impossible," Zargoth growled, but he was beginning to have doubts. The human admiral's calm confidence was unsettling. No species should be able to maintain such composure when facing overwhelming military force. "Perhaps we should send a small delegation to investigate," suggested his science officer. "If they truly live on the surface, it would explain their unusual behavior." Zargoth agreed reluctantly. A single transport ship was dispatched to Earth, carrying a team of Dominion scientists and military observers. The ship was equipped with the most advanced protective systems available, designed to keep the crew safe in the most hostile environments imaginable. The delegation was led by Commander Troy Williams of the Earth Marine Corps, who had volunteered to serve as their guide. Troy was a combat veteran who had served in every major climate zone on Earth, from the frozen Arctic to the blazing deserts of the Middle East. He had survived conditions that would have killed most galactic species within minutes. "Welcome to Earth," Troy said cheerfully as the alien delegation emerged from their transport ship at Edwards Air Force Base in California. The aliens were wearing full environmental suits with multiple backup life support systems. "Beautiful. Gay, isn't it?" The aliens looked around in terror at the clear blue sky, the bright sunlight, and the gentle breeze that was blowing across the desert. Their instruments were detecting conditions that should have been instantly lethal. "Commander Williams," one of the aliens said through his suit's communication system, "our sensors indicate that the atmospheric pressure here is sufficient to crush our internal organs. How are you surviving without protection?" Troy looked down at his standard military uniform with surprise. "This is protection. It keeps me cool in the heat and warm in the cold. Earth's atmosphere is perfectly normal for us." "But the radiation levels," another alien protested. "Your star is bombarding this planet with deadly energy." "You mean sunlight?" Troy asked. "We need sunlight to survive. Our bodies produce vitamin D from sun exposure. Most humans try to get outside for a few minutes every day." The alien delegation was now huddled together in fear, their protective suits beeping with warnings about dangerous environmental conditions. They were experiencing what their species considered a nightmare scenario, while their human guide seemed completely comfortable. Dr. Amanda Foster, a geologist from the nearby California Institute of Technology, had been asked to give the aliens a tour of some local geological features. Amanda specialized in volcanic activity and had spent years studying some of Earth's most active and dangerous geological zones. "I thought you might be interested in seeing Yellowstone National Park," Amanda said as they boarded a transport aircraft. "It's one of our most popular tourist destinations." The flight to Yellowstone took several hours, during which the aliens remained in a state of barely controlled panic. They were flying through Earth's atmosphere in a primitive aircraft, over terrain that their sensors classified as extremely hazardous. When they arrived at Yellowstone, Amanda began her standard tour presentation. "Yellowstone sits on top of a supervolcano," she explained cheerfully. "The magma chamber beneath us is about 37 miles long and 18 miles wide. It's been building pressure for about 640,000 years." The aliens' protective suits immediately began broadcasting emergency signals. Their instruments detected massive geological instability beneath their feet, indicating that they were standing on top of a potential planet-killing explosion. "You built a tourist facility on top of an active supervolcano?" one of the aliens asked in a voice that was barely a whisper. "Oh, yes," Amanda replied. "We get about 4 million visitors a year. Families bring their children here for vacation. There are hiking trails, camping areas, and wildlife viewing opportunities." "Wildlife?" another alien asked fearfully. "Mostly bears, wolves, elk, and bison," Amanda said. "The bears can be dangerous if you don't follow safety guidelines, but attacks are very rare. Most visitors never have any problems." The aliens were now experiencing complete system failures in their protective equipment. The combination of volcanic activity, predatory animals, and the casual attitude of humans toward these deadly threats was overwhelming their psychological defenses. "Dr. Foster," the lead alien managed to say, "why do humans voluntarily expose themselves to such dangers?" Amanda looked confused by the question. "Dangers? Yellowstone is one of the most beautiful places on Earth. The geysers, hot springs, and wildlife are amazing. It's a peaceful place where people come to relax and enjoy nature." The alien delegation's final report to War Prime Zargoth was brief but devastating. They confirmed that humans not only lived on Earth's surface but had built their entire civilization around activities that would be considered suicidal by galactic standards. They lived near active volcanoes, swam in corrosive oceans, and coexisted with predatory animals that could kill most galactic species. War Prime Zargoth read the report in stunned silence. His military analysts had classified the human response as either a brilliant psychological warfare technique or evidence that humans were too dangerous to engage in conventional combat. 1 year after first contact, Dr. Nancy Clark sat in her office at the Institute for Xenopsychology, staring at the most disturbing research data she had ever compiled. Nancy was humanity's leading expert on alien psychology, though before the arrival of galactic civilization, her field had been purely theoretical. Now her work was desperately needed to understand why entire alien species were suffering psychological breakdowns simply from learning about human existence. "The preliminary results are conclusive," Nancy said to her research team during their weekly meeting. "Human existence triggers what we can only describe as existential horror in alien psychology. We represent every fear they have about planetary survival made real." Dr. Frank Miller, her research partner, reviewed the data on his tablet. "According to our interviews with alien subjects, humans violate their most basic understanding of what life should be. They've built their entire civilization around the concept of safe, controlled environments. We've built ours around adapting to dangerous ones. It's more than that," Nancy continued. "Their species evolved on worlds where survival was guaranteed. Weather was predictable, predators were small and manageable. Gravity was gentle, atmosphere was pure. They've never had to develop the psychological resilience that humans consider normal." Meanwhile, in orbit around Earth, Captain Steve Palmer was leading the first joint human-alien research expedition to catalog Earth's wildlife. The mission had been proposed by the Galactic Science Council as a way to understand how humans had managed to survive alongside creatures that aliens considered nightmare monsters. The alien research team was led by Dr. Keksara, a brave xenobiologist. From the Rational Minds Collective, Dr. Keksara was considered one of the most mentally stable individuals in galactic civilization, which was why she had volunteered for this dangerous assignment. Even so, she remained safely aboard the orbiting research station, unwilling to set foot on Earth's surface. "Captain Palmer," Dr. Keksara transmitted from orbit, "our sensors are detecting a large predatory life form approaching your location. You should retreat immediately." Steve looked around the forest clearing where his team was conducting their research. He spotted a black bear about 50 yards away, peacefully eating berries from a bush. The bear had noticed the research team but seemed completely uninterested in them. "Oh, that's just a black bear," Steve replied calmly. "They're usually not dangerous unless you bother them or get between a mother and her cubs. This one looks like it's just looking for food." "Captain, our analysis indicates that creature weighs approximately 300 pounds and possesses claws and teeth designed for tearing flesh," Dr. Keksara said in a panicked voice. How can you remain calm in the presence of such a predator? Black. Bears are omnivores, Steve explained patiently. They mostly eat plants, insects, and fish. Bear attacks on humans are extremely rare. We're taught basic bear safety as children. Make noise when hiking, store food properly when camping, and give them plenty of space. You teach survival techniques against apex predators to your offspring. Dr. Kexara asked in horror. It's just common sense, Steve replied. Like teaching children to look both ways before crossing a street or not to touch hot stoves, basic safety. On the research station, Dr. Kexara was surrounded by her medical team, who were monitoring her vital signs for dangerous stress levels. The idea that humans taught their children to coexist with creatures that could kill them was beyond her ability to process. Back on Earth, Dr. Michelle Roberts was giving a routine presentation about Earth's climate history to a gathering of galactic climatologists. Michelle specialized in paleoclimatology and had been asked to provide some background on how Earth's climate had changed over time. Earth has experienced 5 major mass extinction events, Michelle explained, displaying a timeline on her presentation screen. The most recent was the Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction about 66 million years ago, which eliminated about 75% of all species on the planet. The alien climatologists were staring at the presentation in shocked silence. Mass extinction events were theoretical concepts to them, disasters so terrible that most species considered them impossible. Dr. Roberts, asked a trembling voice from the audience, how did any life survive such catastrophic events? Life is remarkably resilient, Michelle replied cheerfully. Some species always manage to adapt and survive. That's how evolution works. The survivors repopulate the planet and develop new adaptations for changing conditions. And humans evolved during this process? Another voice asked. Well, human ancestors survived the extinction events along with many other species, Michelle explained. Our direct ancestors lived through ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, and dramatic climate changes. We're actually living during what we consider a relatively stable period in Earth's history. You consider your current conditions stable? The question came from a climatologist whose species had evolved on a world where the temperature varied by less than 5 degrees throughout the entire year. Absolutely, Michelle said. The current interglacial period has lasted about 12,000 years, which is unusually long and stable. Global temperatures only vary by about 60 degrees Celsius between the poles and the equator, and most inhabited areas have very predictable seasonal patterns. The alien climatologists were now requesting emergency evacuation. The idea that humans considered a 60-degree temperature, variation stable, and that they lived through regular climate changes was causing mass psychological trauma among species that required environmental suits to survive temperature changes of more than 2 degrees, Ambassador. Paul Jackson was facing his own challenges at the Galactic Council headquarters. Paul had finally been granted permission to address the council. In person, though he was required to remain in a sealed chamber to prevent psychological contamination of the alien representatives. Honored council members, Paul said, speaking through the communication system, I want to assure you that humanity comes in peace. We understand that our way of life seems unusual to you, but we're willing to share our knowledge and learn from your experiences. Ambassador Jackson, High Chancellor Morden replied from behind a protective barrier. Your very presence here required us to evacuate 3 council members, who suffered nervous breakdowns upon seeing a human in person. How can you claim to come in peace when your existence causes such trauma? Paul was confused by the question. I'm just standing here talking to you. I haven't done anything threatening. But you represent survival capabilities that should not exist, Admiral Crixton interjected. Our military analysis indicates that any being capable of living on a Class X Death World could survive in any environment in the galaxy. You are essentially unstoppable. I wouldn't say unstoppable, Paul replied modestly. I need food, water, air, and shelter just like anyone else. I get cold when it's cold and hot when it's hot. I'm just a normal person. Normal? Dr. Zalthara asked incredulously. Ambassador, your medical scans indicate that your bone density would allow you to survive impacts that would liquefy most galactic species. Your muscle tissue can generate forces sufficient to break our strongest materials. Your blood chemistry processes toxins that would kill us instantly. I think you're overestimating human capabilities, Paul said with a laugh. We're pretty fragile, actually. We can be hurt by falls, cuts, burns, diseases. We need medical care. When we're injured, we're not Superman. The alien representatives had no idea what Superman meant, but they interpreted Paul's casual dismissal of his obvious physical advantages as either false modesty or psychological warfare. Dr. Nancy Clark's research team had been monitoring the diplomatic sessions, and their findings were revolutionary. The fundamental problem, Nancy explained in her report, is that humans and galactic species have completely different baselines for what constitutes normal existence. What we consider mild challenges, they perceive as existential threats. The report continued. Galactic civilization developed around the principle of eliminating risk and controlling environment. Human civilization developed around the principle of adapting to risk and surviving in uncontrolled environments. These are not just different approaches to survival. They are opposite philosophies of existence. The psychological evaluations of alien subjects showed a consistent pattern. Contact with humans forced them to confront the possibility that their entire way of life was unnecessary. If humans could thrive on a death world without advanced environmental controls, what did that say about species that required perfect conditions just to survive? The humans have accidentally triggered an existential crisis across galactic civilization, Dr. Nancy Clark concluded. They've proven that life can exist under conditions we thought impossible, using methods we considered primitive. This challenges the fundamental assumptions that galactic species have built their societies around. The crisis was deeper than anyone had realized. It wasn't just fear of human capabilities. It was the terrifying realization that perhaps galactic civilization had made itself weak by eliminating all challenges from their environment. The humans had become strong precisely because they had faced dangers that galactic species had spent millions of years trying to avoid. 2 years after first contact, the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have imagined. The discovery of humanity had shattered the old order and forced every species to question their most basic beliefs about survival and civilization. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Terran Expeditionary Ship Explorer, leading humanity's first diplomatic mission to the galactic core. The fleet consisted of 6 human vessels, all built with the same practical design philosophy that had kept humanity alive on Earth. The ships were tough, reliable, and designed to operate in harsh conditions. To human eyes, they looked normal. To alien military analysts, they appeared to be indestructible war machines designed by a species that considered death worlds suitable for colonization. Admiral Morrison, reported Commander Lucy Harper from the navigation station, we're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council. They're requesting that we maintain a minimum distance of 10,000 kilometers from any inhabited stations. Jake sighed. Even after 2 years, most alien species were still too terrified to allow humans within what they considered safe proximity. Acknowledge their request, Commander. We'll maintain the specified distance. The new Galactic Council headquarters was located on a massive space station orbiting a neutron star, far from any inhabited worlds. The old headquarters on Nexus Prime had been abandoned after several species suffered planetary-wide psychological breakdowns following human diplomatic visits. The new station was designed specifically to allow communication with humans while maintaining what aliens considered safe separation. Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. Lisa Martinez was celebrating the 3rd anniversary of the Interspecies Survival Institute. The institute had become the galaxy's most important research facility, though it was also considered the most dangerous place in known space. Only the bravest alien scientists dared to visit, and even then they required extensive psychological preparation and life support systems. Today marks a significant milestone. Lisa announced to her mixed audience of human researchers and alien observers watching from orbit. We've successfully trained 57 alien researchers in basic Earth survival techniques. 3 of them have actually managed to spend more than 5 minutes on Earth's surface. The achievement was remarkable by galactic standards. Tixara, a young Kepler scientist, had become something of a legend among her people. She was the first alien to successfully breathe Earth's atmosphere for 30 seconds without suffering a complete nervous breakdown. Her people considered her the bravest individual in their species' history. Dr. Martinez, Tixara transmitted. From her orbital observation post, my people want to know if humans would be willing to help us understand why our home world feels so unsafe after learning about Earth. Lisa looked confused. Unsafe. But your world is paradise by any reasonable standard. Perfect climate, gentle gravity, pure atmosphere, no dangerous animals. That's exactly the problem, Tixara replied sadly. We've realized that our world is only safe because we've eliminated every challenge from it. We've made ourselves weak. When we see how humans live, we understand that we've been hiding from life instead of living it. This conversation was being repeated across the galaxy. Hundreds of species were experiencing what psychologists called survival awakening syndrome. Young members of various species were questioning why their ancestors had chosen to live in such controlled, sterile environments when real life was possible. President Helen Rodriguez was addressing the reformed Galactic Council from the new human embassy station. The embassy was located in empty space, far enough from any inhabited areas to avoid causing panic, but close enough to allow for diplomatic communication. Fellow beings, President Rodriguez said, speaking through the heavily shielded communication system, humanity proposes the creation of a galactic emergency response system. We've learned that many of your worlds face natural disasters that you consider extinction-level events. We believe we can help. Madam President, High Chancellor Morden replied nervously. Are you suggesting that humans would voluntarily enter disaster zones to provide assistance? Of course, Rodriguez replied. Natural disasters are part of life. Earthquakes, storms, floods, volcanic eruptions. Humans have experience dealing with all of these. We'd be happy to share our knowledge and provide direct assistance when needed. The silence that followed was profound. The idea that any species would voluntarily enter a natural disaster zone was beyond galactic comprehension. To most alien species, natural disasters were avoided through advanced prediction and evacuation systems. The concept of actually helping during an active disaster was revolutionary. Captain Rita Barnes was leading the first Human Survival Corps' mission to the Talmarian system, where a Class M planet was experiencing what the locals considered an apocalyptic crisis. The planet's weather control systems had failed, and natural storms were occurring for the first time in over 1,000 years. Talmarian Control, this is Captain Barnes of the Human Survival Corps' vessel Resilience, Rita transmitted as her ship approached the planet. We're here to provide emergency assistance with your weather situation. Captain Barnes, came a panicked reply from the planet's surface. Our entire population is in underground shelters. The surface conditions are completely hostile. Wind speeds have reached 30 kilometers per hour, and precipitation is falling directly from atmospheric moisture. Rita looked at her crew with amusement. 30 kilometers per hour winds and natural rain were what humans would consider a mild spring shower. Talmarian Control, we're prepared to provide surface assistance. Our team can operate in much more severe weather conditions. You're willing to operate on the surface during active meteorological events? The question was asked in a tone of complete disbelief. It's just a light rain, Rita replied. Our equipment is designed for much worse weather than this. The rescue mission became legendary throughout the galaxy. Human teams worked in conditions that Talmarians considered unsurvivable, repairing weather control systems while natural rain fell around them. Videos of humans working calmly in the apocalyptic weather conditions were viewed billions of times across galactic networks. Dr. Kevin Thompson had established the first comparative survival research station on Kepler Prime, the most advanced and safe world in the galaxy. The station was built to human standards, which meant it could function without any environmental control systems beyond basic atmosphere recycling. The fundamental difference, Kevin explained to his alien research team during one of their regular seminars, is that humans learn to adapt to their environment instead of adapting their environment to themselves. This gave us flexibility that controlled environments cannot provide. The research station had become a pilgrimage site for young aliens who wanted to understand what real survival looked like. They came from across the galaxy to study in conditions that their parents considered impossibly dangerous but which were actually just normal by human standards. Dr. Thompson, asked a young Vortanian researcher, do you think our species could learn to be more like humans? Every species has survival potential, Kevin replied thoughtfully. You've just forgotten how to use it because you haven't needed to for so long, but the capability is still there. Meanwhile, the ancient progenitor archive had been discovered deep in the galactic core, containing records that explained Earth's true nature. The archive revealed that Earth had been a test world, designed by an extinct species called the Builders as the ultimate survival challenge. Ambassador Paul Jackson stood with a team of galactic archaeologists as they examined the ancient records. The documents were written in multiple languages, but the message was clear. According to these records, Paul said, reading from the translated text, the Builders created Earth as an experiment in extreme survival. They wanted to see if any species could not only survive but thrive under the worst conditions imaginable. And humans passed the test, added Dr. Yelthara, the chief archaeologist, her voice filled with awe. You succeeded beyond what even the Builders thought possible. The discovery explained everything. Earth hadn't been a random death world. It had been deliberately designed to be as challenging as possible. The Builders had filled it with every hostile environment, dangerous creature, and survival challenge they could imagine. They had expected any species that evolved there to become the ultimate survivors. The Builders left one final message, Paul continued reading. They said that whoever survived their test world would become the galaxy's teachers and protectors. They designed Earth to create a species that could help others when their safe worlds failed them. The revelation transformed galactic civilization. Overnight. Humans weren't cosmic horrors or impossible anomalies. They were the product of the most advanced survival training program ever created, designed by a species that had foreseen the need for ultimate survivors. Species across the galaxy began requesting human assistance with problems they had never been able to solve. Worlds facing natural disasters, colonies struggling with hostile environments, research teams exploring dangerous regions of space. The galaxy had spent millions of years trying to eliminate risk from their lives. Now they were learning that sometimes risk was necessary for growth.